So apparently there's something called the Gen Z stare. Now, I don't think I personally experienced it, or maybe I just haven't noticed being part of Gen Z myself, but today we're going to investigate whether we genuinely come off as socially off-putting to other generations, or if this is just another internet myth created by bitter millennials. Either way, before we start, make sure you are subscribed.
By the way, this is the Gen Z stare. Hi, how are you today? Okay. What'd you want to do today?
Saying that we don't really know how to talk to people, we can't communicate, and no, we can communicate quite well, actually. You're just f***ing stupid, and you've decided to show up to this establishment with your last 2 remaining brain cells from 1954. You're stupid. And we just can't say that because we are at our job. So that's why we're staring at you.
The only thing that bothers me about this is like, do you think that we as a generation are just so much smarter than every other generation?
For Gen Z's first reaction to be like, actually the Gen Z stare is something we do because we're smart and you're stupid. No! Without even understanding what was being said, just immediately being like, we're smart, you're dumb, you don't get this. What you guys are talking about is a universal customer service experience. Gen Z does that for mandatory small talk. Hi, welcome to this establishment. How can I help you?
I love the Gen Z stare. I love using it in the service industry. And it's not because we don't know how to communicate and we don't know how to talk to people. It's because you don't have common sense.
Hi, welcome in. How is everyone tonight?
So the Gen Z stare is usually defined as a blank face, deadpan expression, and oddly intense eye contact. Now, one theory is that it comes from the fact that post-2020, a lot of us were left very socially awkward, and then you combine that with the fact that many of us spent our formative years online, not as far gone as Gen Alpha, but still, especially during our teen years, right? When your main form of communication has taken place through screens, emojis, and now TikToks, it's no wonder that real socialization, especially with strangers, can feel awkward or even unnatural for some in Gen Z.
This is a Gen Z stare everybody's talking about. Can I order? What would you like?
Actually, I have experienced something like that, but it was with a waitress and she was like 40. We sat down, we were waiting, and she came to our table. She just looked at us and did not say a word. We were like, oh, okay, we'll have this. Usually you would go to the table as a waitress or a waiter and say, hi, what can I get you today? Something, you know, a little communication. But she was 40. That would be my guess. She was not Gen Z.
Do you guys sell cookies here?
I mean, in this case, if someone asks, you could say, yes, we sell cookies. If you're very tired, you might feel like, obviously we sell cookies, but instead you just stare for a second and then you say yes. But let me just say this, because a lot of people complaining about the Gen Z stare are cashiers. If you're flipping around your little iPad screen asking me for a 200% tip after all you've done is hand me a water bottle, yeah, I'll give you the Gen Z stare. I'm gonna give you that stare because absolutely not. Anyways, so in some cases, I do think it makes sense to take a pause, to avoid saying anything rude, especially when you're dealing with very difficult or rude customers. However, some psychologists and media outlets weighed in, and they suggest that this so-called antisocial behavior might just be a side effect of Gen Z social development, like we discussed before, right, with COVID. Now, when it comes to real-life small talk or basic customer service interactions, Gen Z can come off as a little bit glitchy. So that may be that pause that they take, right? Not because we're rude, but because we simply haven't had as much in-person practice. That's one theory, especially in service jobs, right? That blank stare isn't necessarily attitude. Sometimes it's someone just freezing under pressure, or they're just confused and trying not to say something blunt in response to a ridiculous customer service question. I don't think this is only an issue found in Gen Z though.
Hi, how are you? Okay, I'll take hazelnut, cold foam, cold brew, please.
What size?
Pardon?
What size?
Oh, 24 ounce, please.
Okay, now my theory is that it's an energy mismatch. So maybe we just aren't as energetic. So they're expecting the, hi, how are you today? What would you like? Yeah, that I have noticed. A lot of people pretend. A lot of people try to be nonchalant to seem cool. Maybe that's what's going on, but I do think we're just naturally a little bit less enthusiastic, and it's harder for us to put on that fake cheerful attitude if we're not really, you know, feeling it. maybe, because yes, basic politeness is part of the job. But if someone is yelling, someone is being condescending, or someone is saying something like, oh, you piece of shit, give me that, give me this, give me... You don't have to be like, oh, of course, sir. Of course, ma'am. You don't owe them that fake grin and chipper attitude all the time. You should, of course, handle the situation professionally, but you're allowed to stand up for yourself even in this kind of job. Regardless of what generation that person is from, you should not be expected to tolerate disrespect in silence if it's escalating in that way. Of course, it depends on what is being said. Also, even outside of a service job, I don't think anyone should feel obligated to smile or act overly friendly when someone is being rude, whether it's a stranger, a coworker, or whoever. I'm not going to smile and pretend everything's great just to keep the peace, personally, but I think that's what other generations are noticing about Gen Z. You can handle the situation maturely without performing fake politeness for someone who does not deserve it. Of course, again, context matters. I don't mean some elderly couple walks in and asks you a bit of a silly question. It's your job to answer politely. But if someone is completely out of line and being rude and cursing you out or something like that, yeah. So that's not a Gen Z malfunction, that's just having boundaries.
Hi, what can I get for you?
I want a latte with whole milk, but I'm lactose intolerant.
We do offer milk alternatives like oat and almond milk.
Last time I checked, milk is something that comes from a cow, so I refuse to drink anything that doesn't come from a cow.
The Gen Z stare is not just disassociation because somebody came into your work and said something stupid. The Gen Z stare is specifically when somebody does not respond or just doesn't have any reaction in a situation where a response is either required or just reasonable.
Gen Z not understanding the Gen Z stare is the most Gen Z thing ever. I feel like the millennials are still hurt over us making the millennial pause.
The Gen Z stare is the real thing. It's so real. Hi, I'm so sorry. That class is fully booked. There's no spot available. Yeah, no, it's fully booked. There's no spot available. I can't put you in that class. It's fully booked.
But can I do a strawberry banana smoothie? Yeah, I can do that. Anything else for you guys? No, but does a strawberry banana smoothie have banana in it?
I'll take a millennial pause over Gen Z stare any day. We will go to war. Gen Z versus millennials.
I just wanted to get a decaf Vietnamese iced coffee with oat milk, if that's all right. So we actually don't have any decaf coffee. And I can also only do the Vietnamese with sweetened condensed milk. Okay, I mean, like, I always, like, come in and order, like, the same thing.
I just had my first experience with the Gen Z stare. Couldn't find this basket, asked a lady, hey, got a basket?
You guys know I don't mind calling out my own generation. That said, I have not really noticed this Gen Z stare in real life. If it does exist, I don't think it's coming from a place of judgment or passive aggression. My guess is that a lot of people are just overwhelmed in these jobs and are having a harder time masking that than other generations because they're socially isolated or chronically online. All issues that affect our generation more because of technology. Now, that kind of stare, it could come from being stuck in your own head, not trying to intimidate someone, right? It's just like buffering for a second because they're confused. That would be my guess.
Oh, Gen Z just does the Gen Z stare. They don't know how to talk to people. Fair. A lot of Gen Z don't know how to talk to people. But a lot of older generations talk too much, too rudely, and too proudly while being too stupid. I cannot tell you. You have to work in the food industry to fully grasp how stupid people can be. She was like, okay, I want this cheeseburger with no cheese on it. Then she says, I want to have pepper jack on this burger.
We have the Gen Z stare because most of y'all are just clueless. Can I have a cheeseburger with no cheese?
You want me to go look in the back and find paint at a grocery store.
Or, hear me out, it could be that the Gen Z stare was invented by millennials as revenge. Because we roasted them for the side parts, we roasted them for the millennial pause, which if you don't know is that awkward delay before speaking on camera, especially with TikToks and such. So this may be their, oh, you guys are creepy and emotionless, that's their revenge. Maybe. Or it could be real. Honestly, every generation has its quirks, and yeah, sometimes Gen Z does come off as socially awkward. Not every person, of course, but when it happens, again, I don't think it's because someone's trying to be cold or unfriendly or rude. It's probably because many were raised by the internet and then locked up when they were supposed to be socializing in high school or in university, getting their first job. When screen time replaces real social interactions, yeah, your mannerisms will reflect that. You're gonna be a little bit more awkward, maybe stare, maybe pause. That is my theory, at least. I haven't personally seen it again, but maybe you have. So let me know in the comments if you have witnessed the Gen Z stare. Also remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can see more videos like this. Like and share the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.